calling in from West Coast, good morning. If you're calling in maybe from Europe, good evening. Happy Lunar New Year, everyone. Happy Mardi Gras. Happy Fat Tuesday. Really excited for our conversation today. I am Samantha Martin. I am the communications director at Cleveland Water Alliance, and really excited for the panel that we have for you all today about exciting Ohio technology. We have some really incredible innovators in Ohio. We wanted to shine a spotlight on them. At CWA, we get a front row seat to really exciting technology from all over the world. And we have a pretty good crop right here in Ohio, if I do say so myself. So just wanted to check in and see where everyone's calling in from. Go ahead and put in the chat where you're calling in from. We typically get a really good global audience for these kinds of events, and curious to see where everyone is calling in from today. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. We have plenty of time reserved at the end for Q&A. I know we typically have a really interested and active audience, and we want to make sure that we get to your questions. So go ahead and ask any questions via the Q&A function, and we'll make sure we get to them at the end of the panel. So a little bit about Cleveland Water Alliance. If you are not familiar with us, welcome. We're excited to get to know you. CWA is a nonprofit that is really an economic development engine focused on water technology. I like to say that we're tackling global water issues while benefiting Ohio's economy. And most everyone knows about our history with water in Ohio, in the Cleveland area, along the Cuyahoga. We're the reason for the Clean Water Act and subsequently the EPA, because of our history with not only pollution on the water, but cleaning up that pollution and figuring out how industries can do better and protect and conserve our water resources better for a healthier future. And so that really has made our region one of the highest concentrations of water expertise in the world. And CWA exists to convene these institutions that have been traditionally siloed, all working together to solve water issues. So we have our research institutions, we have really world-class utilities here. We have really incredible innovators like some you'll see today, corporations, water-using industries, and traditionally, these industries have been siloed. So CWA convenes all these folks together and makes sure that we are accelerating market-driven innovation. And we love our Ohio innovators. That's what we're focusing on today. We accelerate that water tech innovation, not only find it and scout it, but we want to accelerate it. And because of our testbed infrastructure, which I'll talk about in a little bit, we are attracting global businesses to do business in Ohio. There's really incredible global innovation driven by legislation overseas, driven by other entities that are funding that innovation. And we want them to come do business in Ohio and enter the US market through us. And we also provide meaningful data to our water managers here. So how do we do it? We really have a deep understanding on the trends and the market needs. We have a finger on the pulse. Like I said, we're connecting those end users with those creating technology, because traditionally in the US, there has not been a really good pipeline. See, we love to use a water pun when we can, a pipeline for these entities to talk to one another, because our utilities in the US can't answer the phone every time someone has a good idea. We vet that technology. We allow them to test and trial in our testbed infrastructures after this bespoke matchmaking process, and we facilitate pilots in the US, and not only in the Ohio and Cleveland region, but all over. We also like to offer access to funds and business support services, introductions to customers and investors and end users whenever we can as well. So we're all about accelerating water tech. We're all about making an economic impact in our region. Sometimes that requires us to look to innovation outside of our region, and sometimes we get to spotlight innovators in our region like we do today. So that brings me to our panelists, the reason everyone is here today. So starting off, I'm just going to do a brief introduction, and then we'll get started into the discussion where folks can speak a little bit deeper about who they are and what they do. So first off, we have Dennis Flood. Now, Dennis, your family has such a great name to be in water technology. I really feel like you were destined to do it because Dennis not only has more than 20 years of experience in high-tech startups, but Core Water, his company, it's a 3-generation ordeal, right? Is that correct, Dennis? 3 generations of the floods?
Yeah, that's correct. We are flooded with floods.
I love it. And Core Water is advancing water treatment solutions to meet the global PFAS or PFAS, depending on how you want to say it, challenge. And you are based in Oberlin, Dennis, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
All right. And next up, we have Max Pennington. Max is the co-founder and CEO of Cleaner. And Cleaner was born from a few really smart CASE students. So CASE is located in Cleveland. I don't know about everyone else, but when I was in undergrad, I was not concerned with solving global water issues. So pretty incredible that these group of students turned an idea into a reality. And that idea is a microplastics filtration device for in-home washing machines. And Max was just selected as a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient, and Cleaner took home a CES Innovation Award this year. So big things happening with Cleaner. So glad to have you here, Max.
Thanks for having me.
And then we have Steve Ostanek, and he is the president and owner of Neuendorfer. And Steve has been with Neuendorfer for 40 years. Is that correct, Steve? So you started working when you were 5 years old. Is that right?
High school. Yeah. Actually, it's 43.
Oh my gosh.
But who's counting?
Congratulations.
Who's counting?
Congratulations. And Neuendorfer just celebrated 50 years in business and is located in Willoughby. And Steve is starting to champion the introduction of new technologies and applications. Neuendorfer has traditionally worked in air pollution control, filtration, and processes end-to-end solutions. And now looking into introducing new technology that can be applied in the water space and resource management and recovery. So it's an exciting time for Neuendorfer.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen right now. And I want to just kick it off. Let's start with you, Steve. And so let's keep it really basic, really simple. You're talking to someone maybe not in water tech. How would you describe your technology in just a few sentences?
That's a hard one. I'll do my best. Basically, we are using low voltage electrical pulses to enhance the biology of the organics that are in the water stream, and that in turn allows, from a simple term, better biodegradation of those organics, and also allows things like nutrients to precipitate out of the organic matter.
And where does Neuendorfer fall on, with this technology specifically, on the tech readiness scale?
We would fall in the TRL 8.
Mm-hmm.
If you assume that TRL 9 is commercialization,
Yeah.
we're pretty much ready to go.
And who is the end user of that tech?
It's kind of a broad range, in the water treatment world. It's the wastewater treatment and recovery systems. In the biogas world, it is the owners and operators of anaerobic digesters on farms that are trying to convert organic matter into biogas. And then from a nutrient pollution standpoint, it's the farmer. It comes down to the farmer treating lagoons.
Thanks, Steve. Same question for you, Dennis. Just in a few sentences, describe your technology.
Okay, just a few sentences. So it really is dependent on people understanding what the PFAS issue is. PFAS are man-made chemicals that are used to enhance certain products, making things oil and water resistant. They are called forever chemicals because they don't break down on their own. There's a huge need for remediation of PFAS. We are targeting Initially, we're targeting water treatment, potable water treatment, drinking water. There are existing technologies that work really well at taking PFAS out of water. We specifically designed our technology and our patented adsorbent to not only take it out of water, but we're able to then apply a rinse to remove the contaminants, and isolate them for subsequent destruction. So we are developing a full remediation on site for PFAS.
And where does your technology fall on the tech readiness
Sorry, I
scale?
forgot
That's
that.
okay.
So we're currently, I would say we're TRL 6. We're heading into TRL 7. We're in the midst of our first pilot test, third-party pilot test for on the absorption end for our particle. We're working with an environmental engineering firm to help us to design and build our pilot test skid. Piloting for adsorbents is very well known. It's an easy thing to set up, but for our process, we need to build the skid ourselves. So we're in the middle of engineering that and having it built. That's what sends us into TRL 7.
And describe the person or entity who would be using your technology.
Yeah, so we're initially targeting water treatment plants, potable water treatment, but there are a lot of areas where this can be applied. And part of the reason that we picked potable water is that, for one thing, it's a big market. It's the forecast. They don't really know how big that market's going to be. Some estimates that we've seen, one from Black and Beach, which came out at probably a little more than a year ago. In the U.S. alone, they're figuring it's going to be about $4 billion a year for PFAS remediation. Um, and the thing about it is, it's a large enough market that there are several different technologies, several different adsorbents that will be used and will be needed to take care of ultimately removing PFAS from the environment.
Thanks, Dennis. And same over to you, Max.
I think similar to Dennis, it's important to understand the microplastics problem for what we do at Cleaners. So the thing that got us started was learning that our laundry, really our clothing, is the largest source of microplastic pollution. A lot of people have now heard about microplastics, which was not the case when we got started, but they've been found in your brain, they've been found in your blood, they've been found in your lungs, on the top of Mount Everest, and the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And I think a really commonly overlooked source of them is your clothing. So you actually interact with it every day to day. When you take the dryer lint filter out and you scrape all of the lint off, that's actually plastic coming from your clothes, whether it's polyester or nylon. So our technology that we patented is called Vortex, which really extends the lifetime of a filter and helps you filter down smaller than you could with traditional filtration technology. And we've applied that to our first product, which is an external washing machine filter that can go on any washing machine and catch over 90% of microplastics down to 50 micron. But our vision is to have the technology integrated into washing machines in the future. And then we're also working to remove microplastics that come into your home. So our vision at Cleaner is really to take the technology and apply it to streams of microplastics leaving and coming into your home.
And where do you fall on the TRL scale?
So it's different based on the products that we're developing. So with our external filter, it's in the market, commercially available. So we have 100 filters that Case has purchased and installed, and they're all across campus getting way more loads of laundry done every day than you would ever think. So they're all connected to a dashboard, so we can actually see how many microplastics have been captured and how all of the filters are performing. We have them in homes. I have one in my home. My parents have one. People are buying them on the website. And then we're working and pushing to get the technology integrated and commercialized on the inside of the washing machine, where we're done with the development, but it needs to really get industrialized. So we have a prototype version of that. And then we're working on a prototype of a point of entry, so coming into your home. So it depends on which product.
And how did you guys get involved with this, Max?
I was actually, so I'm from Cincinnati, and I came up to Cleveland to study chemical engineering, and I was doing internships in Cincinnati doing life cycle assessments, so looking at sustainability of products, and then along the way got a bit obsessed with plastic pollution and was shocked to learn that microplastics were coming off of our clothes and that it was the largest source. And then where I am today, it's the Sears Think Box, but it's the largest open innovator space in the United States, and it's right here in Cleveland. So we started prototyping, and then we built Cleaner here.
That's awesome. And I want to ask Dennis the same thing because you have a history in getting involved in some different tech startups. How did you end up with Core Water?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I was involved in a previous startup. We were in the nanotechnology space, not related, but we were looking at water treatment for heavy metals. And we were looking at enhancing the surface of granular activated carbon. And around 2018, we became aware of the PFAS issue, and we started looking at, what was being done. And at that time, it was basically granular activated carbon or anion exchange resins. And once they were full, they were either burying them or burning them. So it was going to landfills, which is just exacerbating the problem because PFAS don't break down. They migrate long distances. As Max mentioned with microplastics, you can find them anywhere. They found them on the polar ice caps. They're in our blood. The estimate is about more than 200 million Americans are drinking water that's contaminated with PFAS to some level. So I got off course there a little bit, but we were looking at and we decided that it wasn't about just taking the PFAS out of the water. It's what do you do with that material when it's now considered a hazardous material because it has PFAS on it. And we developed a surface treatment for granular activated carbon that allows us to use a chemical rinse to remove the PFAS. And then it's a simple isolation technology. And at the time when we started, and we officially took in our first outside investment in late 2021, we were actually developing our own PFAS destruction system. It was based on photocatalysis, and we developed a dual band gap photocatalyst that would break down the PFAS with the right energy from a UV light. And it even could have been done solar. But when we looked at the landscape of things, there were several PFAS destruction technologies that were well ahead of where we were in the development cycle. So we specifically designed our process, our particle and process to be agnostic to PFAS destruction. Can provide a bridge for PFAS destruction technologies to get into drinking water treatment, potable water treatment. The way they work, it's electrochemical destruction, supercritical water oxidation, HALT, which is hydrothermal alkaline treatment. They all need a concentrated source to be economically and efficiently applied to PFAS destruction. And the flow rates, even in small water treatment plants, is just too high for them to handle. So our process can provide a concentrated source that they can be applied at whatever rate that is most effective for them. So that's why we are talking with several different PFAS destruction companies about collaborating on our process.
Yeah, that's a good segue, Dennis. First of all, did you see the Olympics
I
news as
sure did.
well?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
sure
so
did.
PFAS in the news of some of the wax coating on the skis and the equipment was PFAS were detected there, and so teams were disqualified because of that. So in the news as recent as yesterday, but also, we are going to be having our first, not only kind of our first lab sort of pilot experience, but also our first PFAS pilot experience with Core Water. Could you talk a little bit about what that will look like?
Yeah, that's we're really gearing up for that and looking forward to that. with a company that we had heard about. They're located here in the Great Lakes area. They're actually in Lansing, Michigan, Inspired Solutions. Um, and we got reconnected. Clean Water Lines helped us to reconnect with Inspired Solutions because we're looking for partners to do third-party pilot testing. And the Clean Water Lines test bed network is great. It's been the perfect place for us to come and not only find a partner here in the Great Lakes region, but to have a place and to find a place, help us to find a place and get it set up and running. We're really excited about that. As an aside, I'll probably take a lot of heat for this because I'm going to mention one of the reasons we like Inspired Solutions. It's an effective technology, but they are out of Michigan State University. You can't quite see my diploma there, but I'm a Michigan State grad, as well as my chief technical officer, who's my father, is a Michigan State grad. So we're happy to be working with a company with a little bit of that lineage.
We won't hold that against you, Dennis. Well, speaking of pilots, this past summer, we got to pilot Neundorfer's new technology that was in part funded by H2 Ohio TAP, the Technology Assessment Program, in partnership with the Ohio EPA. We identified some farmers and we piloted this technology. Steve, do you want to talk a bit about that experience and where we're at with analyzing the data right now?
Yeah, we were charged with full-scale pilots. So these are not lab scale or anything like that. These are full-scale pilots out in the field. We selected three farmers, three different dairy farms of various different sizes in Western Ohio. And the project was that we would take our technology, treat the lagoons. We were treating, I think our largest lagoon was 2.5 million gallons of manure, which is a lot of manure, and that's only one farm. And treat those lagoons. And we had a very detailed regimen of lab analysis that we wanted to do of those samples. Probably this is, well, not probably, this is the most rigid, detailed testing that we have done on this technology over the lifespan of the technology. Right now, we partnered with Heidelberg to do all the lab samples and testing. They are in process of that. We should start seeing results back from them later by the end of this month, probably, and then full report will be done April-ish type of thing. It's taken them a long time to process samples. There were 350 samples that we that we gave them. But the exciting thing is we got to know the farmers, and they were very engaged. They understand the problem, and the problem is nutrient runoff, nutrient pollution, primarily phosphorus. And what we're targeting is how much of the phosphorus can we get to liberate itself from the supernatant layer of liquid at the top of the lagoon and have it fall to the bottom. This allows the farmer to apply this nitrogen-rich free fertilizer on their fields whenever they want. Farmers are constricted by how much phosphorus they can put on. So if the phosphorus comes along for the ride, it limits their ability to do this. So they might have to look at investing in more lagoon space. And so it has a multiple positive benefit. And right now, we're excited about the results, and we're waiting patiently for them.
Yeah, I think, we're really fortunate in Ohio to have funding opportunities like this with H2 Ohio and with Ohio EPA because the ag industry and the dairy industry, they're huge in our state. They're incredibly important in our state. And also we're recognizing that nutrient runoff is an issue. And how can we help these farmers? How can we empower these farmers? What kind of tools can we give them to better do what they're doing, so everyone can get their milk and their yogurt, and also keep our water resources clean and safe for our communities. So I think it's a really incredible program, and very glad to be a part of it. And I'm excited to see what the data shows.
Same. Soon.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, absolutely. If everyone wants to keep an eye out, once we have that information, we'll be making sure to make an announcement of everything and share that publicly.
Yeah, and I guess another point here to just make is, we're tackling a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
We have tackled the point source nutrient problem pretty well, but these are non-point sources, right? You think about how many farms are just in Western Ohio, how many lagoons are out there, where are they situated in that? So this is challenging, and it's fun to be part of that, and hopefully we can be part of a solution for this.
Yeah, and I think just getting out on the farms, we were fortunate to be out there and talk to those farmers. These farmers are the ones, especially that we work with. They weren't massive operations. These are relatively small farmers who have a very long to-do list, who have a lot of things to be concerned about, to worry about, financials. And this is just, another thing on their plate. So we want to make sure that we don't just innovate for the sake of innovation. We want to be able to create things that people can use, that are accessible for them to use and make sense for them to use. So that's why doing pilots like this are so important.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I want to turn it over to Max. Now, Dennis talked a little bit about the state of PFAS and, PFAS capturing and destruction. It's not, both of those things kind of need to play together to be able to have a solution. Same thing with microplastics. What is the state of microplastics monitoring and capturing in the US as it relates to other countries?
I think the US is behind, but really all of the other countries are behind too. I think microplastics are definitely an emerging contaminant. As you look at a lot of the research, I think it's a newer contaminant than PFAS that's coming to everyone's attention, where I think over the last 2 years, there's been like a 350% increase in consumers that are saying their number one concern in their drinking water is microplastics. Even on social media and in the news, I mean, you just see all sorts of memes about where microplastics are that they shouldn't be. And I think it's really hit the mass public that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. But I don't think the government has really caught up to it yet. There was recently a petition from the New Jersey governor and 9 other governors to monitor drinking water for microplastics, which is really the first push going after that. My anticipation is they're going to find microplastics in the drinking water if they go looking for it. But I think the big question ultimately is, what are they doing to our bodies? And there's a lot of, concern and linkage to what they're doing now, but the mechanistic studies of what they're doing from a first principles level hasn't been done yet, which I think is what everybody's waiting for and what the government's waiting for. The only problem is, if we wait too long, microplastic pollution and concentrations are expected to double by 2050. So I think it's really critical to start acting on solutions and finding mitigants to it now, which is why we're doing what we're doing. But overall, I think, we're behind the issue for sure.
Your product has been in the market for, what is it, 6 months now at this
Yep.
point? Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about that process of commercialization? And I mean, I'm sure you could talk about this for an entire hour of some of the tweaks that you had to make, what you anticipated versus what actually happened.
Yeah, it's actually a really like it sounds relatively straightforward, but it is really challenging to filter out washing machine wastewater down to 50 micron, just because washing machines are built really to pump from the ground to the drain, and that's it. So as soon as you apply any sort of back pressure on it, you get errors and issues, and then you have to deal with everything that goes through a washing machine, which is a surprisingly wide array of different particulate. You'll get sand, you'll get human hair, you'll get pet hair, you'll get cotton, you'll get polyester, you'll get beads and necklaces. And, we had to go through the process of building a filter, sending it to a washing machine company, learning of some new way that it got broken by some new thing that we didn't think was going to go through it, like a necklace or a certain type of pet hair. And then to go source that and develop it and iterate on the different parts that are on the inside of the filter until it worked and functioned to actually get it out into the market was challenging. And I think we've gotten a lot of credit and built up a lot of credibility for having a product that we took all the way through and getting it to market, which is really the point of the filter that we developed, is to really go after our early adopters, the people that are really passionate in the microplastic space, but ultimately to show regulators and washing machine manufacturers and clothing producers that there are technologies that can be implemented at scale, that are in the market and working, so that we can ultimately drive it to be integrated and come as a standard.
Max and I were just on a panel recently, and hearing you talk about how important pet hair was in this process for you was so fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. Never. We had to end up like going out to all these groomers in the Cleveland area to get pet hair, and we needed a lot of it. So we had to, call up these pet hair people, and they were not used to giving out pet hair as something, that somebody wanted. And at first, we were getting all this wet pet hair, and the interns that we had hired from Case were like, "We're going to quit if we keep having to, play around with this smelly wet pet hair." So I ended up having to call all these groomers to find one that washed, dried, and then shaved their animals so that we could get that pet hair, which was ultimately on Lee Road. But we we solved that one. But yeah, just things that you would never think that you have to do to get a technology and a product to market that work.
Yeah. I guess I'll put the same thing over to Dennis in terms of, obstacles to commercialization. What has that path been like for you? I'm sure, this pilot, you're going to be learning a lot as well, but so far in this process, what have those obstacles been?
Yeah, that's pretty typical obstacles for us. It's a given that water treatment market has been around for a while, and there are a lot of emerging contaminants that come up over the years. One of the biggest ones early, and I'll echo a little bit about what Max was talking about, the public awareness for PFAS when we first started this was just about zero. And it's still surprising to me how many people I talk to that don't know what PFAS or forever chemicals are until I mention, well, they're in things like Teflon. Oh, Teflon. And we're a little careful about making Teflon this evil thing. Teflon itself is inert. There's nothing wrong with Teflon. It's the constituents that go into making it. But um, yeah, so for us, and I've lost my train of thought after getting off track there. So for us, it's the inertia for current practices is what is a big obstacle that we're still trying to overcome. I mean, because in the water treatment market, you have some really big conglomerates that dominate the absorptive media market. And it's a resistance to change. And these aren't new things. I mean, these are things a new business faces no matter what market they're heading into. But I will say the one thing that has helped us is that often federal policy does not drive a market. But in this case, in the PFAS and forever chemical space, federal policy is driving the market to a large extent. But also back to touch on something Max said about microplastics is that the states have been well ahead of the federal government in regulating this space. So there's always going to be a market out there for PFAS, and I would imagine the same thing for microplastics because the states they're taking care of it, and a lot of these states, New Jersey, Michigan is a big one because of all the paper mills that used to operate in Michigan. So those obstacles are ones that we're slogging through and trying to get over, and realizing that with the impending drinking water standards that now it's been pushed back a couple years. The initial drinking water standards for PFAS was instituted in summer of 2024, and water treatment plants that had a PFAS problem had until 2029 to do something, build something, start to remediate that. Now it's been pushed 2 years. And I will say there hasn't been a huge shift in, except for pushing the timeline back a little bit. The importance of PFAS is still there. So there's been a little tweaks, but nothing has really changed because legislatively, nothing has changed. So, the regulations are in place.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we see that as well with lead service line work that we're doing. And Alyssa, if you could plug our next webinar that's actually focused on lead service line detection technology, it's the same thing. The states are really and regional utilities are leading the charge there because legislation around not only replacing the lead service lines, but even knowing where they're at. Those lead service lines aren't mapped. And so, one of the things that we are working on with other innovators as well is detecting lead service lines without breaking ground. But legislation is really sometimes the biggest driver of innovation, not always, but oftentimes. And I think it also makes it culturally relevant as well. Like you said, Max, people are talking about microplastics now, and the more that there's culture around and awareness around these things. I don't think a few years ago we would have seen PFAS in the news with the Olympics. Even you travel overseas, even a few years ago, and you would see in Europe pans that say, PFAS free and things like that. So it's a cultural conversation simultaneously happening with a legislative conversation, and kind of how those two meld together to really push innovation forward. I want to throw it over to Steve, and you kind of have a different perspective here with Neuendorfer being in this different market typically, and with this new technology. Now, I know that we put out an RFP. We helped with the Ohio H2 Ohio TAP program. Putting out an RFP. That's how we found Neuendorfer. So this technology existed previously. What did it have a water application previously, or is this your first time using it in this space?
No, no, previously it was applied in the same manner that we did the pilot. And it's a good example of, getting acceptance of this technology in the nutrient pollution realm is going to be driven by regulation. It's going to be driven legislatively, because it's hard to tie the economics to it. There is potential for savings and even revenue from concentrating the phosphorus, but that is way in the future when that happens. So this technology, it was the Chesapeake Bay watershed was seriously looking at technologies like H2 Ohio was to reduce nutrient pollution. And the technology was applied in pilot tested in Pennsylvania. The state legislature was all over it. They had created incentives for the farmers to use it. It was almost at the finish line, and the politics in Harrisburg flipped. And now all of that went away. And this basically went away for about 10 years before we dug it up and resurrected it and started applying it in this area. So it depends on which market that you're looking at in terms of adoption. So in this market and nutrient removal, it's about more of a regulation or a legislative support for it. In the other markets, a wastewater treatment plant, I mean, it's about cost savings. If the technology makes them able to process 10 or 15% more throughput with the same equipment for less money, you can put dollar signs to that, right? If it produces 20% more biogas on a biogas operation, that's money that kind of built-in incentives. So
Yeah,
this kind of depends.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'll pass it over to Max, and then the other panelists as well. Um, how has being a part of Ohio's innovation ecosystem, other than just reaching out to pet groomers, which is very important for your innovation process, how has being a part of Ohio's innovation ecosystem and working with organizations like CWA and other supportive organizations, how has that shaped Cleaner's growth?
I think it's been critical. I mean, we always say this and we believe it that Cleveland's ground zero in the fight against microplastics pollution. And I think there's a lot of resource here. There's a lot of Cleveland pride. I mean, there's great network with Case. They just got the number 27 best university in the world from Time, which was awesome. Working with Cleveland Water Alliance, I think there's a great focus on water. We're right on the banks of Lake Erie. And I think all the citizens are supportive of protecting the lake. I think we're familiar with a time where we did not. And I think we know the impacts of that. So I think a lot of people are looking at how do we make sure that that's not the case, and how do we set an example of sort of best practices around the world. And I think we've gotten a lot of support from that. So it's been really critical.
Yeah, and same thing for you, Dennis. We'll allow answers from Michigan as well. But any other entities that have been, critical in shaping the path of core water?
Yeah, well, I would echo a lot of what Max said about Cleveland Water Alliance. I mean, the network that Cleveland Water Alliance has already in place for the test beds and in helping us to establish a pilot with a collaborate with a company they already are working with. It's you can't put a price tag on that. It really can. I mean, it takes a long time to establish a relationship with another company. And having a organization like Cleveland Water Alliance can help. I mean, our first interaction actually with Cleveland Water Alliance was Cleveland Water Alliance sent us to the Ohio VC Fest, where we were able to talk to a lot of people and a lot of different, investors, other companies, other tech startups, and that experience in itself helped to lead to a pretty significant investment for our company. So outside of that, it's, knowing and that we have an organization out there that's helping to get the word out about Lake Erie and the Great Lakes region in as a whole with microplastics and the PFAS issue growing. I mean, it's here. I don't think people really understand how much it's here. And you need an organization like Cleveland Water Alliance to help to get the word out. In addition, I would say that for us, I mean, our initial focus is here in the States, but we also have filed our patents and patent protection internationally, and the Clean Water Alliance has an extensive network of international organizations and companies, and I know that that is going to be critical for us to expanding overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dennis. And Steve, I know we mentioned some of the key entities of Ohio EPA and H2 Ohio, but even beyond just this specific technology, any other kind of entities that have been critical in innovation or expansion with Neuendorfer?
I think we've our technology partner with Decant, who kind of came up with this concept initially, is definitely very important. I think in the future, we're really looking at what other entities can we collaborate with to come up with a solution that breaks down some of the barriers to entry. I mean, we've had 50 years of air pollution control experience. Okay, we don't have 50 years experience in the water treatment world and in the agricultural world. So we know that we're going to have to collaborate with someone on that. And to continue, I agree that CWA provides something very unique in Northeast Ohio that other regions just don't have, and that is part of the plan, right? Is where else, we're probably only scratched the surface of how we can leverage our collaboration with CWA. So we have to constantly kind of be nurturing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Steve. We've got some questions coming in for Q&A. Make sure to get your question in. Last question here before we get to those. How can our audience, whether they're utilities, investors, or just concerned citizens, how can they get involved in supporting water innovation efforts, specifically as it relates either to your issue that you work on or your technology, if anyone wants to jump in there?
Raise your hand if you want to do something. Really get involved. There's technologies here that are real, right? And there's also probably technologies that are emerging that need that pilot experience. And just being available and to either help or be part of that pilot experience, because that brings real world feedback to the developers. That is so important. And sometimes it takes a really long time to get there. And I think it's a mindset thing. It's, Dennis talked about, hey, there's technologies that have been out there for 20, 30 years, and we're so used to it, and change is really kind of hard. And we know this works. We know it's expensive, but it works. But it's just takes someone who's got some guts, right? And willingness to take a risk to partner up with these technologies and say, yeah, let's give it a try. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I would follow on with that a little bit, what Steve is saying. And other companies, other technologies out there, don't be afraid to reach out for potential collaboration efforts. I would say one of the things that has been refreshing in the space we're in, PFAS remediation, is that regardless of what your technology is, it's not, let's beat up the other guy, let's say what's bad about their technology, but it's more, how can we work together to solve this issue? And that's really what's at the crux of what we're doing. We're trying to do what's right for the environment. It's really a big driver here at Coreward, and I'm sure it's a driver at with Max and Steve. We're not only trying to run a successful business and make some money doing it, we're truly doing what's right for the environment. And it really is something that has come as something my father, who's chief technical officer here, has spent his entire career working in renewables. His expertise area was solar energy for space applications, but it evolved into all of these things. So, it's been really refreshing to the sense of collaboration, at least in the PFAS mediation market, and hopefully that's what Max and Steve are running into as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think for us, I mean, we do have a consumer facing product. So every filter that we sell and install is super helpful to spread the word, getting, the word out there that there is something to do about microplastics pollution. And it's not just this scary sort of esoteric problem that there's nothing to do about, except here in the news, how it's getting worse and worse. There is something tangible that you can do and install a filter. It takes like 30 seconds, a week to maintain it. You can install it in less than 15 minutes without any tools. So that's a really straightforward thing to do. And then two, we're starting to partner with businesses. So a lot of businesses have washing machines. They want to offer, filters as an employee perk as part of their sustainability benefits. So we're doing a lot of like Earth Day events with different companies around Cleveland. We have a university program that we're trying to expand. So connections to any of that or starting other sustainability sort of initiatives, all of that would be very helpful and appreciated.
Yeah, thank you,
One more
everyone.
thing I would like to add is, we're still considered an early stage company. If there are investors out there, they're interested, we're talking. So, we don't have a product. We're pre-revenue. So we're working toward our revenue, and we have a runway to meet. And if investors like to get involved in projects like this, we're open.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dennis. And that's why I really appreciated this panel of not only diverse technology and what you're accomplishing, But oftentimes when I'm traveling, when I'm representing the interests of CWA or our innovators, so many folks just don't understand what it takes to move through this world. Is that, you don't just have an idea and then you're good to go. Let's solve our problems. I met with a reporter a year after we put out our RFTs for our lead service line technology. And they were kind of like, what's the update? Why haven't you solved it yet? Not understanding all of the time in trialing. And that's why trialing in real world conditions, setting up these real world pilots, going to market, getting feedback from customers, going to lab, combining your powers with other technologies. We've seen that with quite a few innovators of combining hard tech and software and algorithmic based software. There's so many ways to kind of plug and play right now in advanced technology. So thank you all for your time and for hitting all of these different points of how and where and why technology progresses, but really driving home that there is a huge need for piloting in real world conditions, for getting consumer and end user feedback. That's a huge need, not only in our region, but around the world. And that has really made CWA in Ohio a destination for global innovators to come do that work here. But also that's possible because of this incredible network of helpers, of researchers, of organizations that are caring for our water and managing our resources, that are so willing to participate in this process. We have such a wealth of knowledge here, and being able to tap it is critical to what we're doing. And like you said, Dennis, we're all in this together. We're all looking for these solutions together, and we can create a really incredible economic impact doing it. So let's get into some Q&A here. First one is for Max. Tell us a little bit about the filtration products, the other products that you're dipping your toes into.
Yes, so we're focused. First, it's easiest parallel on stuff leaving your home. So you have your washing machine, you have your dishwasher, you have your dryer. All of those have products that go in them that emit microplastics that we think the technology can be applied to, and to ultimately remove them. And then what we're starting to shift into is actually microplastics coming into your home. So there's not really any mass market whole home water filtration systems that can remove microplastics down to the NSF 401 standard. There's a lot of like under the sink solutions that you can use, which are the point of use style, but we're really targeted on a mass market, affordable point of entry filtration system that can remove microplastics from your entire home. So think about your tap water, your sink water, your shower water, all of that being under one system. And then we would also remove chlorine and taste and odor and sediment as well. We're also working to scale the technology up ultimately to go after industrial launderers. So think about hospitals, think about uniform companies, and there is actually like an ROI to them where they're getting charged by the wastewater treatment plants today for what they emit out in their wastewater. So scaling it up can actually save them money with pretty decent ROI and payback periods.
Yeah, that's a huge market opportunity that most folks wouldn't even think of. That's incredible. Looking at some of the questions in the Q&A, thank you, Dennis and Steve, for answering some of those via chat. Good question. Are these technologies being applied and monitored in one watershed, like Cuyahoga River? So these specific technologies, no. However, CWA has a monitoring network that covers nearly 8,000 square miles of the lake, of various watersheds, and we have partners throughout the Cuyahoga River. Cleveland Metro Parks is a really incredible partner for us that help us deploy and get feedback on technology. So those technologies are not only gathering data for us to use, but they help us deploy new technologies as well. So these specific technologies, no. I mean, I guess Max is technically deployed in the Cuyahoga watershed, but CWA technologies and other innovators, yes. We got another question here from Ed. Good question. So Samantha, whatever became of an early CWA innovator for phosphorus removal? From John Carroll. Good question, Ed. That was a little bit before my time, and so I can't speak to that exactly. But the thing is Erie Hack was a really an earlier iteration of this work here, and it happened before we had testing and trialing infrastructure. So this infrastructure really came into existence in 2020 through EDA funds. That's when we started really building out this piloting infrastructure, both physical infrastructure and the infrastructure of these incredible connections, and allowing researchers like Steve mentioned, Heidelberg, to be a part of this process as well. So I can't speak to that exact technology. However, we have kept up with some innovators who have advanced solutions, or who have maybe are no longer working with that specific solution, but are working in other solutions right now. So Erie Hack was a really incredible springboard for the work that we're doing today, and being able to create the infrastructure, not only to help support these ideas with funds, but really giving them the avenue to progress and accelerate. And Ed has a note here about, one way to get involved. We talked about, it says, CWA and panelists, are you working with congressional reps to get SBIR program reauthorized? So that funding is critical. And when we speak with our legislators, we're representing, interests of economic opportunities, and SBIR could be a really powerful funding avenue for some of these innovators. So great note, Ed. Thank you, everyone, for really great questions. I will leave folks with one final thought here about our upcoming webinar. Alyssa put it in the chat. But Max, Dennis, Steve, any final parting words about maybe advice to innovators that are looking to enter this space as we wrap up here?
No, that's I would say get involved with organizations like Cleveland Water Lines. And when you talk about testing, that's one of the things when you're developing a new technology, particularly one that you're trying to break in and raise awareness, that testing, you can't do enough testing. You do all the testing you can in your own lab. That only gets you so far. That might get you a few investors interested in your company, but in order to really prove out your technology, you need a good network to test, and third-party pilot testing and the test bed network that Clean Water Lines is. Those are the places you need to go.
Thanks, Dennis. Max, Steve, any final words?
I would just add, staying passionate about the issue that you're solving, because it can be really hard and you can have ups and downs. And as long as you can center yourself on, you believe in what you're doing, that will get you through it. But I think you've heard from all of us that you definitely have some challenges taking something to market, and ultimately, you might give up if you don't really believe in what you're trying to do. So I think that's always been in the back of my mind. I'm excited for one day to walk into a store and hopefully see our technology in a washing machine. That's what keeps me going.
And I'll add, don't get discouraged with the 0 or 1 thinking mentality that's out there. This is more of a scale. It's a 0 to 10. It's incremental improvement. We're trying to solve big problems that have taken decades to fester. And it's going to take decades to solve. And as long as you're making an incremental improvement, that's a win. Mm-hmm. Could be small, doesn't have to be big, but you're going the right way on this thing.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, so much for your time. We'll be following up with the recording for everyone who registered for this. Feel free to share it once it's live. Thank you, Dennis, Max, and Steve, for your time and your thoughts. On our webpage, we have your websites and your LinkedIns, so folks can reach out to you if they have any further questions or want to be involved in your technology moving forward. And we hope to see you at our next webinar focused on lead service line detection technology. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.